They say the dead should be left in peace. But what if they were brought back through black magic? Lillian thought she had escaped the terrifying curse, that the dark spell was broken, that Julia was gone forever. But when her newborn daughter vanishes into the darkness of the night and whispers begin to echo through the walls once more, she realizes the horror hasn't ended. It has only just begun. Because some spirits don't just seek revenge. Some are bound by black magic. And this time, Julia hasn't returned to haunt. Lillian lay curled up under her blanket, her breath trembling. The room was swallowed in deep darkness, with only the faint glow of the clock on the wall moving slowly. The ticking of its hands echoed in the silence, as if time itself was crawling. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't have the strength to let the tears fall. Fear had gripped her soul. Her hands instinctively clutched her stomach, the place where life had tried to take root 4 times, only to wither before it could bloom. That same emptiness, that same incompleteness seeped into her bones once again. Today, her friend had told her about an occultist, a thought that stormed through her mind. An occultist, an expert in such matters. But was this truly the work of an evil force? A curse? Or was it just her imagination, as her husband Daniel claimed? But how could she dismiss everything she had been witnessing for months? The bloodstains that appeared out of nowhere. The clothes that tore without reason or were found scorched at the edges. That strange, putrid stench that filled the house every morning, like the smell of rotting meat. And the most terrifying thing of all, the feeling that shook her to her core every single morning. Her husband was overseas, away for months, and rarely ever came home. Yet, every morning when she woke up, there were marks on her body, bruises, scratches, imprints of unseen hands. She felt shattered inside, but there was no one to believe her, no proof to hold on to. Lillian pulled the blanket tightly around herself, as if that thin piece of fabric could shield her from whatever lurked in the shadows. Her eyes darted to the clock. 3 a.m. Time itself seemed to have frozen. She lived in her husband's ancestral mansion, a grand but ancient estate, standing miles away from the city. By day, it seemed like any other house, but at night, the walls whispered secrets. The long corridors, heavy wooden doors, and towering ceilings felt suffocating, pressing down on her like an invisible weight. Knocks at the windows, clothes mysteriously tearing apart, and that unbearable stench of decaying flesh every morning. Everything pointed to one truth. Something unnatural was here. There were 4 people living in the house. Lillian, the one suffering through it all. Daniel, her rational-minded husband, a captain of a merchant ship who spent months away at sea and dismissed everything as mere superstition. Julia, her quiet, emotionless stepsister, always lost in her own thoughts. And Martha, the old housemaid, who knew far more than she ever spoke. But this house didn't belong to just the 4 of them. Something else was here, unseen, yet always present. As soon as morning broke, Lillian quietly grabbed her car keys and left without telling anyone. Her heart pounded violently, but she had made up her mind. She couldn't wait any longer. On her way, she picked up her closest friend, who sat beside her in silence, her face mirroring the same fear and curiosity. The occultist lived far from the city, in a desolate place surrounded by barren trees and crumbling houses. An eerie silence weighed down the atmosphere, making the already ominous surroundings feel even heavier. As soon as they stepped inside, a foul stench engulfed them, burning flesh mixed with the scent of decayed bones. With a trembling voice, Lillian told the occultist everything. He listened in silence, his sharp eyes locked onto her before he turned toward a pile of ancient bones and began chanting. Minutes passed before he finally looked at her. "You are cursed," he stated in a grave voice. "A powerful entity has been bound to you through dark magic." Lillian's heart sank. Her breathing grew uneven. Can it be undone?" she asked hesitantly. The occultist gave a slow nod, but his expression remained serious. "Yes, but I need something from the person who cast the spell. A strand of their hair or a piece of clothing they have worn. The one who did this is clever. Until you find them, I can do nothing." Confusion and fear flickered across Lillian's face. "But how will I know who did this?" "That is for you to discover," he said. "The day you find them, return to me. Then I can help you." Lillian exchanged a glance with her friend. The same question burned in both their minds. Who was trying to destroy her? That night, Lillian lay restless in bed. The occultist's words echoed in her head like an unshakable warning. "Someone has cursed you. You must find them yourself." Then a thought struck her. Martha. The old housemaid had been in this mansion for years. Lillian had never liked her. She had even asked Daniel to let her go, but he had refused. "She's been with our family for decades. I can't throw her out." Lillian had dropped the subject then, but tonight, something inside her whispered. This was all Martha's doing. She slipped out of bed and crept up the stairs toward Martha's room. Her heart pounded violently, but curiosity and fear pushed her forward. As she reached the door, she carefully peered inside. Martha was fast asleep. The room looked normal. Lillian exhaled sharply, feeling a wave of disappointment. Maybe she had been wrong. As she turned to leave, she heard it. Soft whispers, chanting. Her blood ran cold. But the sound wasn't coming from Martha's room. It was coming from Julia's. A chill shot down Lillian's spine. Her hands turned icy as she tiptoed to Julia's door and pressed her eye against the keyhole. What she saw made her knees go weak. Julia sat on the floor, her long hair unkempt, surrounded by flickering red candles. Shadows danced across the walls, stretching and twisting into monstrous shapes. But the most horrifying thing was the smoke rising from one of the candles, forming a grotesque face with burning eyes. Julia was talking to it, worshiping it, and in front of her, stained in fresh blood, lay a photograph. Lillian's photograph. A scream clawed at her throat, but she swallowed it. Fear turned to rage, then to something darker. Julia. It had always been Julia. Now Lillian had a choice, to remain a victim or take her revenge. Only one thing remained in Lillian, the fire of revenge. Her blood boiled, her heart pounded as if it would burst from her chest. With quick steps, she stormed into her room, yanked open the wardrobe, and retrieved Daniel's pistol from the bottom drawer. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with a singular purpose. Julia had to die. Her footsteps echoed through the dimly lit hallway as she climbed to the third floor, where Julia's room was. As she reached the door, it creaked open on its own. And at that very moment, Julia stepped out. For a second, she froze. Shock and fear flickered across her face as her gaze fell upon the gun in Lillian's hand. "You..." Julia's voice was laced with disbelief. "Why did you do this to me?" Lillian's voice shook with rage. Julia took a deep breath, then suddenly she laughed. A cold, mocking laugh. "Because I hate you more than anything in this world." Lillian's heart clenched. But why? Hatred twisted Julia's features. "Ever since we were children, you took everything from me. Every little thing I wanted, you stole it. Even Daniel. Your mother destroyed my mother's happiness. Your family took my father away from me. And your mother, I didn't spare her either. Yes, I strangled her with my own hands, and everyone thought it was a heart attack. Lillian's mind went blank. The world around her seemed to blur. Rage consumed her. She lifted the gun, but before she could pull the trigger, Julia lunged at her. A violent struggle broke out between them. Nails dug into skin, hands grasped at throats, bodies slammed against the walls. Then, in the chaos, Julia's foot slipped at the edge of the staircase. For a fleeting second, terror flashed in her eyes, and then she fell. A sickening thud echoed through the mansion. Lillian stood frozen, her breath shallow. Below, Julia's lifeless body lay sprawled on the stone floor, a pool of blood spreading around her head. Then, a faint rustle. Lillian turned sharply. Martha stood at the top of the staircase. She had seen everything. For a moment, Lillian's heart stopped, but to her surprise, Martha said nothing. She simply stepped forward, bowed her head slightly, and walked away, as if silently agreeing to bury this secret forever. Julia was dead. It was over. Days passed and life slowly returned to normal. Julia's death was ruled an accident. Daniel stayed home for a while, but eventually returned to work. But Lillian's work wasn't done yet. She had Julia's clothes, a few strands of her hair, plucked in their struggle. Carefully, she wrapped them up. Then, alone, she set off once more, to visit the occultist. This time, she would end the curse, no matter the cost. In the darkness of the night, Lillian's car sped down the deserted roads. Her breaths were uneven, her heart pounding violently. In her trembling hands, she clutched Julia's blood-soaked, torn clothes and a few strands of hair, remnants she had found near the bed. Tonight, she was taking them to the occultist. Raindrops splattered against the windshield, blurring the world outside. She remembered the occultist's words. Without the real remnants, nothing could be done. Now, she had them. It will all be over now, she reassured herself. But deep inside, something unsettled her. Something that refused to rest. After driving through desolate alleys and winding roads, she finally arrived at the occultist's lair. The place was nothing short of a ruin. Crumbling walls, tattered black cloths swaying from tree branches, and the pungent smell of burning incense clinging to the air, making the whole atmosphere sinister. She parked the car and stepped out with hesitant steps. Inside, the occultist's piercing eyes locked onto her the moment she entered. He sat cross-legged on a worn-out rug, red flames flickering in the oil lamps before him. "I knew you would return." His voice was low, yet it echoed. With shaking hands, she opened her wallet, pulled out Julia's blood-stained clothes and hair, and placed them before him. "Here, these belong to her. Now do what you must to end this nightmare forever," she pleaded. The occultist examined the items silently, then opened an ancient book and began chanting. His voice resonated deeply, sending ripples through the still air. Moments later, he placed the clothes and hair in an iron bowl and struck a match. As soon as the flames erupted, a foul stench filled the room, something akin to burning flesh. The fire wasn't normal. Hues of blue and green danced within it. And then a blood-curdling scream echoed. Lillian staggered back, her breath catching. "What was that?" The occultist didn't respond. His eyes closed as he continued the ritual. Soon, the flames died down, leaving behind only ashes. Silence settled over the room. "It is done," he said, exhaling deeply. For the first time in months, Lillian felt a sense of relief, but a shadow of unease lingered within her. The occultist's gaze remained fixed on her, as if waiting for something. A price must be paid. His voice was calm, yet heavy with meaning. She wasted no time, pulling a golden bracelet from her purse and placing it in his outstretched hand. "Take this. Just make sure it's over." The occultist smirked, pocketing the bracelet. "You may leave, but remember, the dead don't always stay dead." She dismissed his cryptic words and hurried out. It was over. She had finally rid herself of Julia, yet deep within, a strange sorrow clung to her. Julia had been her stepsister, and tonight, she had ensured her permanent end. Months passed. 3 months later, Lillian gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Sophia. She and Daniel embraced their new life, cherishing the peace they had long sought. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Daniel spent most of his time away at sea, while Lillian remained in the mansion with their daughter. A year passed, and everything seemed normal. Or so she thought. That night, a violent storm raged outside. Thunder roared, lightning slashed through the sky, and the wind rattled the windows furiously. Lillian was fast asleep beside her daughter when something stirred her awake. A strange silence filled the room. She turned. Her heart stopped. The bed was empty. Sophia was gone. A cold dread coiled around her spine. She shot up, frantically scanning the room. "Sophia, baby, where are you?" She called out, panic creeping into her voice. But there was no response. Then she heard it. Those whispers. The same eerie, muffled whispers she had once heard outside Julia's room. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself forward, following the sound. Reaching the door, she froze. The lock was broken. How? I locked this door myself. She slowly pushed it open and peered inside. What she saw drained the blood from her face. In the center of the room, surrounded by flickering candles, sat Sophia. Before her, tendrils of smoke swirled into a familiar form. A face was taking shape in the haze. Julia. She had returned. Then, suddenly, its fiery red eyes lifted, locking onto Lillian, and it smiled. Paralyzed, Lillian stood rooted to the spot as Julia's voice slithered through the air. "You thought it was over? I never truly leave, Lillian. Now, it's my turn."